Hi, welcome to Grace Place Farm and Gardens. My name is Mason Prescott, and this is the Build Your Own Farm Store series. Today, I'm joined by Downey McDade, and we're going to talk about foundations. Let's get into it. All right, so today we're going to talk about laying the foundation for a farm store. So we built a whole foundation to set a prefabricated shed. Downey, go ahead and talk us through a little bit about what some of the specs or some of the things we had to consider, like how deep of a foundation do we actually need to lay?
Right, so the foundation is really important because, it literally carries the weight of your entire structure. And for our considerations, especially because we're in a very cold climate here in South Dakota, we had to consider frost heave as one of the biggest considerations, because during the winter, with how thick the ground can freeze, it actually causes the entire structure to rise and fall if you're not careful with how deep the foundation goes. So we had to take that into consideration for lateral movement as well as horizontal movement to make sure that we weren't going to have any issues down the road.
Right. Share with us some of the decisions that were made around material choice. Like you said, we're in South Dakota, we get harsh winters, we get plenty of rain. What kind of wood and what kind of rock did we kind of go with?
Right, so as far as wood, we decided to go with 4x4 pressure treated lumber. And the reason for that is because pressure treated lumber, especially in our climate, is rated for about 15 to 20 years without needing to swap it out. One thing you absolutely don't want to do is you don't want to get too cheap of wood, and then you end up having a rotted foundation from just a few years of use, and you have to dig it up, or your foundation is starting to wear out because of not using the proper material. And so that was a very important consideration that we had, number one. And then after that was the type of gravel, because you need to use clean gravel that is already crushed, because it's easier to compact, which makes it to where it makes to the whole foundation a lot more stable. And it's great for drainage,
right?
Because especially if you're having a lot of snow or you're in a climate with a lot of rain, you really need to consider what's my drainage plan, especially if you're doing one of these gravel pads like we did.
So for this gravel pad, we had to hire an excavating company because we ourselves did not have at the time any kind of bobcat, skid steer, any heavy farm equipment like that. And it ended up being, I'll say, more than we expected to spend. So be prepared for if you're pulling a quote for someone to excavate, tamper down, and drop gravel for you. That can add up. So just be shopping around and find what options you best can. Something else I wanted to talk about were two other things. One, I wanted to know what are some mistakes people could be making. I like to be intuitive and clever when I can, but when it comes to cutting corners or trying to come up with a clever solution, what are some corners you should avoid cutting when laying a foundation?
Absolutely. Well, the most important one is whatever you do not cut the corner of not leveling your foundation. That is the most important thing, because however well you lay your foundation in the very beginning is going to determine how well your structure holds up over time. And one of the most common mistakes that I saw a lot of people making is not taking the time to, number one, tamp down all that gravel, because that's actually what helps your foundation become truly level. And if it's not level, you have all kinds of problems down the road, from your doors aren't shutting properly later, your windows won't open and close properly, if you have things on casters, like in our farm store we have our fridges that are on wheels, they could roll around because the floor is not level. And they're all problems that you have to address sooner or later, so it's better just to do it right the first time.
Okay, that's good. Something else I want to mention, because I didn't know this going into this, and when I was told we had to install these, I was really surprised by our building inspector, but anchors.
Yes.
We had to install anchors on our shed. It might blow away.
Yeah, so that was a specific requirement for us being here in South Dakota. South Dakota is considered a very high wind area, and because of that, all structures that are not actually secured to the ground by their foundation have to have an additional form of structural anchorage. So we had to put what's called hurricane ties on the outside of our building to make sure that if for some act of God crazy windstorm were to come through, that it would not just pick up and fly away like Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz.
Right. This is a lot of the stuff you're gonna need to be considering, making sure everything's set and level, Don't be cutting corners. Be reaching out to different contractors. Find where you can get clean gravel. The last question I want to ask before we wrap this up is, what are the dangers of rushing a foundation?
I mean, number one, delays later, problems down the road, unforeseeable things. Those are all things that can happen because ultimately, if you don't take the time to do it right, you will have to fix it later. You will be paying for it one way or the other. So it's just worth the time to do right. Make sure that everything's square, make sure that everything's level, make sure that everything's compacted properly, that you have good drainage, all of those things, because it's time that you don't want to be spending later when you already have something on top of your foundation that you're trying to build.
Great. Well, thank you guys for joining us today for this episode talking about foundations. We're really excited for continuing on with this series and everything else that's going to come forward. After this, we're going to be talking about insulating and electrical work. So we'll see you next episode.